Good morning, everyone. Hey, Ken, how are you? I've got a couple of my faculty colleagues. You know, Jack, this is going to sound like a mutual admiration society, but I love Jack Fisher. I really do. First of all, I work for him. It's always smart to love the people you work for. But the second thing is I like him because he's a guy who takes his work on the university very seriously as a board member, but takes also the leadership role of the Farm Bureau and agriculture very seriously in this state. We have to remind ourselves, he gave this figure that about 15% of the economy in this state is tied in some way to agriculture and to what we're doing to the food chain process. It's the largest single business in the state of Ohio. We should not forget that. $100 billion business and growing, and indeed very, very healthy, as a matter of fact, compared to a number of other places. And by the way, we need to put this into context. If Ohio were a free country, sometimes we want to be free. If Ohio were a country, a standalone country, we would be the 18th largest economy in the world. Think about that. And so when we think about Ohio, we have to put it into context. And so you think about agriculture as being the center of that driving force. It's enormously important for us to understand that. And of course, we're in the idea business. Thank you very much for coming. This is the idea generator right here. And I really appreciate this conference. When Jack talked to me about it and said, would you come over and say a few words, I not only readily consented, but I was enamored by the concept of actually having people from all parts of this state and from all parts of the industry that we call food being able to come together, because I think it is such an imperative at this moment. There are out of the 6+ billion people in the world, about half of them are not being fed right. We have enormous challenges. We have enormous challenges economically and socially and culturally. And the idea that we can talk about it, and that, by the way, that given the data that I just told you, that we can make a real difference. Saying that, I will also note that it's great fun being the president of Ohio State University. I love what I do. 64,000 students, 40,000 faculty and staff, a budget bigger than Rhode Island's, and I might note in better shape, and 505,000 living alumni, all of whom tell me about how to run the university, and plus all those 11 million Ohioans who write and tell me everything. By the way, how about those Buckeyes last night? They really took care of the knitting lines. We were all very concerned about that, but you know, I joke about, and Jack has heard me tell this old joke, but it's really the truth. I always joke about the fact that they always wonder why I'm so nervous at a football game, and I point out that to most people it's a football game. To me, it's my budget running up and down the field. So I have to kind of keep that in perspective. But I'll just say a couple of things. Yes, I am the guy who compared TCU and Boise State, the Little Sisters of the Poor. I want you to know that I confess right now, I did not. First of all, I had no idea there was a Little Sisters of the Poor, you know. It was one of those kind of things. I used to tell this story when I first came back, that I said, we're not South, you know, talking about the power of this university. This is one of the great, magnificent institutions in the world, not simply this country. And I said, well, we're not Southwest Missouri State University because, you know, there's Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan, and I didn't know that there was a multi-directional university. And then I got a very angry note from the president of Southwest Missouri State University, so I stopped using that. And then I started saying, we are not the Montana School of Massage, and lo and behold, I want you to know the president of Montana School of Massage is big, burly, and mean. And boy, I tell you, I really got that one. So then I started saying, we're not the Little Sisters of the Poor. Well, guess what? There are. Oregon, Ohio, Sister Cecilia. Sister Cecilia called me up and she said, well, I'm not so mad about you, about what you said about us, but she said, I'm really irritated that you compared us with TCU and Boise State, which I thought was great. So anyway, it was, by the way, we're having on our first ball game, it's the Little Sisters of the Poor Day. They're all coming down. We're going to have a great day. We're going to have all of our things out there. Their fundraising, Sister Cecilia called me the other day, their fundraising is up 1,000%. So I figured, Jack, that if you want me to insult the Farm Bureau, we can get more money coming in some way or other. But the other thing is that, and these guys, I don't know if you watch these sports guys, this Mike and Mike in the morning, man, and these guys on PTI, on ASPN, they, for some reason, they think that I am the sole roadblock to a college playoff system. I don't know why they picked me out. I mean, look, I look like Orville Redenbacher. You know, look at me. What do I know about college football? Obviously not a damn thing. But one of the things that, so I thought today I'd just share this with you to kind of lighten up the mood. and get me going myself, and that is the fact that that in August they had this big thing about the college playoff system. We need to have it, and they had all these comments on ESPN, and then one of our local guys commented on it, and so one day I got about 13,000 emails about all this stuff. I thought I'd share a couple of them. Dear Dr. Gee, as per your opposition to a football playoff, you need to have your head examined by a proctologist. Kind of fun, huh? I received another letter from a fan from Brooklyn, New York, who sent me the following missive. Ray, Ohio State Athletics and College Playoff System. Dear President Gee, you idiot. Dear Dr. Gee, as per your opposition to a college playoff system in football, the next time I see you in person, I'm going to grab your legs and make a wish. I kind of imagined that one. And then this one I thought was funny. It said, may the spray of a million polecats descend upon your office and linger there for eternity. But anyway, so it just kind of shows you what my daily commerce is like. So I generally don't read these things, but I was looking through, and there was this one that said, thank you. Here are these 13,000 emails that said, thank you. Well, I'm going to open up that one because someone actually thought that I did something good. And so this is from Brian. It was sent at 9:01 p.m. on August 26, 2011. Dear Stupid, for doing your part in ruining college football for legions of fans, you suck. So I sent a note back to Brian about 9:15. I said, Dear Brian, I've just received this email supposedly from you. Someone must have your email account, which you should check. Brian sent back one at 9:26 to, Dear President Gee, no longer am I stupid, which I thought was very funny. And he said, I had no idea you actually read your emails. He said, please, please, please do not withhold my diploma. He is one of my students. Well, Brian's doing very well at Penn State right now. You know that. So, anyway, it's fun to be with all of you, and thank you very much for letting me come. And Jack, thank you for the invitation. Let me just say a couple of things. We are all in the idea business. And the reason I believe this is the fact that I think that the world is upside down. First of all, I'll just tell you, and I'm not an economist, but I am a leading economic indicator. Every time I change jobs, we go into a recession. And actually, when I came here, I actually said to the board, I said, I don't feel, this doesn't feel quite right to me. We actually took $100 million out of our university my first day that I started, just to kind of lay our groundwork. And frankly, I think that what this is proving is that this is not a recession. This is a fundamental resetting of the American economic system. We lived on the edge of chaos. We overextended ourselves. We expended too much money. We didn't make the kinds of choices and decisions we should make, and now we're paying the price for it. Now, am I optimistic about this future, about this country? Absolutely. In fact, I'm a jingoistic American. But we have paid a high price and will continue to do so for some time. But it also presents, I think, unique opportunities and a unique situation for us, because if we can reinvent ourselves as a nation, if we can reinvent ourselves as a state, and most importantly, if we can reinvent ourselves as a university, then we position ourselves for the long haul, for the marathon run. And those are the ideas that we need to think about. How do we reinvent ourselves individually and collectively? How do we rethink the nature of what our business is? The one thing that I hate about this, and I know Ken and some of my faculty colleagues hear me say this all the time, the one thing there are 550 reasons that I love Ohio State. The one thing that I do not like is when someone says to me, but Dr. Gee, you can't do that. And I say, why? And they say, that's not the way we do things at Ohio State, as if Woody Hayes himself decreed it. You know, the notion being is the fact that we spend too much time looking through the rearview mirror and wishing for things as they were, not hoping for things as they should be. We need to all wash our windshields and look forward. We need to be forward-leaning and forward-fast. We need to be agile and creative and energetic. And the reason for this is twofold. One, I've recently visited China. 1.3 billion Chinese, 300 million now have moved into the middle class. I visited a city that 30 years ago had 15,000 people and they were in poverty, and today has 15 million, and they're the most powerful economic system in the world in that part. The question is, what does that mean for us? Does that mean that we ought to be discouraged? Does that mean that we ought to pack our bags and just say, you know, we're going to become a third-rate power? India, 1.2 billion Indians. By the year 2050, there will be 2 billion Indians. fastest growing population in the world by far. The Malthusian theory doesn't apply because of the fact that they had the Green Revolution thanks to Ohio State, thanks to the Punjab University, which was established by our institution, thanks to the Green Revolution, thanks to Rattan Lal on our faculty, who just received the Swaminathan Award, one of the most important food prizes in the world, because of what he had done to create a viable system in this country. And he's a Punjabi, grew up eight people in a dirt floor, and went to the Punjab University and came to Ohio State, has stayed with us, has created a powerful way to think about how we grow food as part of that food chain. They're now feeding themselves. We can make a difference. And that was an idea that no one believed in, by the way, and indeed is the case. But you take a look at those. You take a look at those two countries, and they're growing. They're growing rapidly. We're not in competition with them. We need to be in partnership with them. That's an idea. One of the most important ideas that I'll put forward to you today, and one of the most important ideas I want to have you embed, we can no longer do things alone. It is no longer Fortress Ohio. It's no longer Fortress America. It is a global world, and the sooner that we understand that, and the sooner that we think about the partnerships that we have in the various industries that you're in, and how you make those work for yourself. In my business, the most important partner we have is the community colleges, and we don't like to even think about that. But yes, those are important components of who we are. It's that we no longer can think about higher education in this way, that it's K through 12, and then it's undergraduate, and then it's graduate, and then it's life. It's K through life. And the whole idea realm of that means that we need to have continuous operational relationships. We no longer talk about the college in the College of Agriculture. We no longer talk about it as production agriculture or any other kind of segment. We talk about it as food, whether it be production, whether it be food safety, whatever it is. It's about food. And the way that we talk about at the university in terms of, we no longer talk about veterinary medicine or dentistry or human medicine. We talk about one health as part of one university. The point is the fact that we now need to, the idea is that it needs to be a continuum, and a continuum in a number of ways. Let me come back to the Chinese and to the Indians. In the year 1900, the richest man in this world was a guy by the name of Carnegie, or maybe it was Vanderbilt, or maybe it was Rockefeller. Very wealthy, and they earned their living off of hard work of other people. They worked hard themselves, but it was off the extracted industries, off the belching of the great smokestacks in this country, and that was the American dream, and that was the future of this country. We were going to outproduce everyone in the world, and we did for a number of years. By any stretch of the imagination, the 20th century was the American century. It was the century of ideas. It was the century of creativity on the American basis, and it was the century of us becoming the power. We now move to the year 2011. The richest man in the world is a guy by the name of Bill Gates. Bill Gates is a college dropout. I don't recommend that, by the way. But what is his business? His business, Microsoft, everything that his business is was built on ideas that were created in universities. The computer, the internet, the hardware, the software, everything are based upon ideas and creativity that were invented and created in these universities. And so all of a sudden, when we think about this century, if this century is going to be another American century, if we're going to continue to lead and continue to produce and continue to compete, we're going to have to now think differently about our world. And our world is going to have to be that we no longer, we for years outmuscled everyone else. We simply outmuscled everyone else. We're now going to have to outthink in order to outmuscle. It's going to be mind and muscle. It's no longer going to be that. So all of a sudden, what happens? Ideas for you, for everyone in this room, and by the way, I will say this, because I've visited so many of the agricultural areas in this state. I think the agricultural community is much more attuned to creativity in terms of ideas than are many of our other kind of colleagues. You know, I'm riding a big John Deere, and I mean, look at me. I could drive one because if I just pushed a button and it went up and down the roads, and I said, voila, I'm done. Think about that. And so now here we are in that really interesting context, which is that if we're going to thrive, not survive, we'll always survive. If we're going to thrive, we're going to have to do it on the basis of creativity and ingenuity. And then we produce. And so all of a sudden your universities and this notion of ideas and the idea generators become the central focus. We're no longer a place where you send your kids where you send your kids off to college, have a great 4 years, join a fraternity and sorority, go out with the president late at night, sing Kumbaya, and come home and get a real job. We now are the center of the idea business. Ohio State, this institution, is the single largest economic generator in this state. And it is, by the way, we just have all these data. You know, we're going into the legislative session, and we're showing that we're the single largest economic generator. I spoke with a group of union members last night. Can you imagine me speaking with a group of union members? It was great fun. They gave me a standing ovation in the end. That's because I was leaving. And the point I'm making is the fact that we're building this huge project over there. We call it Project One. We now call it the Life Sciences Project. You know, we are creating 6,000 construction jobs and 10,000 permanent jobs. And if we can move Cannon Road, by the way, I'm just saying this to my board member, if we can move Cannon Road, which is by the stadium, move it about 200 yards, we can create space for 3,200,000 more square feet. That's another 10,000 construction jobs and another 18,000 permanent jobs that we can afford to do if we are just able to make the capacity available to us. But it's not. That's not what's important. It's what Ken does. It's what, and I'll just use Ken. I didn't even know Ken was going to be here. Ken Lee, one of my great friends and one of our great scientists. I visited China, the Chinese Academy of Agriculture. They have built the finest food safety facility in the world. Not a damn person in there. They built great things, but they don't have the people with the ideas to be inside it. That's where they want us. And that's where what we're going to do is going to be so critical to them. And by the way, it cannot be in partnership, or it cannot be in an adversarial way. It has to be in partnership. You think about this. Any of you shop at the Andersons? Yeah. Well, okay. Hey, Tom, you do absolutely. In fact, they probably pay your salary. I have no idea, but anyway, yeah, they do that too, and good. But the Andersons. Decided they want to get into producing these something that they never thought about before, and our scientists at OARDC came up with this notion of these spray pellets. You know, now I'm getting way beyond. I'm a lawyer by training, so to understand this. But generally, when you spray for pesticides and so forth, about 80% or 90% of it is wasted. It goes into the air, and frankly, it's not good in terms of the ecology, a variety of other things. So they came up with these spray, and so our scientists, working with the Andersons through the Third Frontier program, came up with these spray pellets. They're producing them like crazy. Our biggest customer is Japan. And they're 90% effective. Now, the Andersons had no idea how to get into this. They provided our partnership, business partnership. So the point is they took our idea, they turned it into production, and we're selling all sorts of stuff all over the world. It's that kind of relationship between ideas and opportunity we're talking about. I visited another place in just outside of Cleveland. It's now Phillips Medical. It was PICAR, P-I-C-A-R. PICAR at one time was the largest producer of MRIs and CAT scans and a variety of other things. And then they didn't manage themselves well, and they were going belly up. And so Phillips Medical, which is a Dutch company, came in and bought them. There 2,900 jobs. They were going to move all 2,900 jobs offshore. They were going to move it back to Europe in some way or other. And then one guy got in touch with some of our biomedical engineers, and guess what? We had developed the best way in the world to build these systems and make them really small. And you can have a CAT scan, a PET scan, and an MRI all together. Now, guess what? 2,900 jobs. They just are building another 1 million square feet. They're going to add a large number of people. They're producing now the best and the largest number of MRI and CAT scan and PET scans in the world, right outside of Cleveland. Ideas, working with business and industry, and with agriculture is really what's going to make that difference. So that's the world we're in right now. We're in the world of ideas. But ideas are not simply ideas. It's not simply reading Thoreau. By the way, today is Dr. Seuss's birthday. Don't you love Dr. Seuss? It's not simply doing that. What it's about, it's about creating an environment in which each of us succeed because the collective notion of us working together is so enormously powerful. And that's the idea I want to implant today. I want to implant that notion that good ideas are not only are welcome, but good ideas need to have this notion of collaboration and partnership. Ohio State University, the great land-grant institution that we are, we were founded on the basis of agriculture and the mechanical arts. It is in our DNA to work with every one of you. But yet, we also need to make certain that it's not just working with you, it's making certain that we have the kind of relationship and partnership that we will have. I'm very convinced of that. Bobby Mosier, one of the great leaders. I appointed Bobby Mosier 20 years ago as Dean of Agriculture. He's had an opportunity to move every other place. Could have been the president of Clemson, could have been the president of X, Y, and Z. He stayed with us. Unlike me, he decided that his home was in Ohio. I'm a born-again Ohioan. And one of the reasons, and by the way, one of the reasons that I think that, one of the reasons I want you to know why I'm here is the fact that in the end, and we had this interesting conversation, Ben Bernanke, the head of the Fed, and the chairman of IBM and the chairman of Ford were on our campus about a month ago. And guess what they said in this little small conversation? They said, you know, the economic renaissance of this country is going to start right here. And why is that? First of all, we still have a great base to do things, and we still have a diversified economy. And the other thing, the most important thing, is I've traveled every county in this state almost every year since I've gotten back. The one thing that I have the most confidence in is the power of our people. That Midwestern values. People who love hard work. People who love being in Ohio. I tell the story about the fact that our great football coach, Jim Tressel, I never met Jim Tressel when I came here, so he came to the announcement of my coming back, and I thought that was very kind of him. Not many football coaches show up to see university presidents. I think he wanted. I was the guy who had eliminated athletics at Vanderbilt, so I think he wanted to check me out and see. He gave me a saliva test. But anyway, I asked him. I said when I finally had a chance to sit down with him, I said, Coach, why are you so successful? And he said, because I never lose an Ohioan to another place. We start with our own. We start with our own strengths and our own ability. I'm at the Fiesta Bowl, Jack. Remember when we were at the Fiesta Bowl together in Phoenix? And the woman who ran all the food services, she rushed up to me and she said, "Are you the president of Ohio State?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, how wonderful." She said, "I'm from Cambridge, Ohio." I said, "Well, that's one of my favorite towns." It really is. I mean, I like Cambridge. I was a little hyperbolic, but anyway. And she said, and I said, "How long have you been here?" She said, 19 years. I said, "You must love it. All this sun, all this kind of bright opportunity so far." She said, in the most serious tone I've ever heard, she said, "Find me a job in Ohio." That's what it's about. In the end, it's about ideas, creating opportunities for partnerships and for our young people. It's about keeping people here. Our greatest asset, we can't waste it. It's our people. It's our opportunity to make people feel powerful and feel engaged. So today I welcome you to this campus. This is a great idea. This union is highly unusual. I just spoke to the American Collegiate Union Association in Chicago, and most of these union directors are there, and it's all about building a building and then making revenue and a variety of other things. This building is about our history and our tradition. If you go through it, I mean, they celebrate everything, and everything is scarlet and great, but it's about our history and tradition. It's about making this the living room of the university. It's about an idea. It's about preserving an idea. It's about preserving our history and tradition, but not being captured by it. And this is my final statement, but just to give you a sense about why our future is so bright. On Saturday evening, I'm out here, just before I go to Chicago. Our students have come together. There were 2,000 of them out in this foyer right out there. And they were all jumping up and down and screaming and doing all these other kinds of things. And because they decided they wanted to raise money for our for the Children's Miracle Network, they wanted to raise money for Nationwide Children's Hospital to combat cancer. So 2,000 of them are out there. They're jumping up and down. They're screaming, and they rush up the stairs. And they dance for 17 hours straight. Crazy, huh? And guess what? They raised $222,000. That is a great idea, because we're investing in those kids, and that's the great idea of what it's all about. So, saying all of that, I've got about 5 minutes. Any questions I can answer for any of you? Oh, come on. This is easy.
How bad are we going to beat Wisconsin?
Oh, we're going to beat the hell out of them. I hate those cheeseheads. I can't wait for them to come up. I'm going to be out there coaching. I've got my ankles taped. I'm ready to go. Matter of fact, we're in trouble if they're waiting on me. I can tell you that much. Oh, don't. I don't want it. No, if that ever escapes out of this room, I'll know where to find you, pal. I'll know where to find you. Okay, promise me not. I am the guy who has more secondary violations than anyone in the NCAA. I'm always saying stupid things, and then they have to apologize for me and so forth. They actually have a GI rule now. Just let him pass, whatever I can say. So yes, sir.
You talk about the venture capital initiative.
Yeah. Now what we've got to do is this. This is our issue. This is our issue. This is Jack's issue, my issue. This is Ken's issue. This is everyone's issue at this institution. We are the 9th most powerful research university in America. But that means out of 3,600 colleges and universities in this country, we are our faculty produce more ideas than almost anyone else. So we rank in the top 1%, on the top half a percentile in terms of the production of all these great ideas. And by the way, agriculture is one of our major contributors in that regard. And then we rank in the bottom quarter in terms of producing those, taking those and producing them into ideas. And so we have made an absolute, probably our number one priority is this: we're going to commercialize this stuff. It does two things. One, it creates an opportunity for us to keep people here and to act as incubators and to do a variety of other things. And then secondly of all, out of there comes all these kind of spin-offs. We just have done a very poor job with that. Some institutions, Stanford, MIT, University of Utah, some of them have done a much better job than we've done. We just hired a guy. We've got a czar. I've been stalking him for, I shouldn't say that. I've been stalking him for 6 months. We got him. We're going to announce him here in the next week or so. And this is the number one guy in the country. I mean, he turns straw into gold every day. And that's what we're going to do. But the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to invest in ourselves. We're going to create a $100 million investment fund, academic venture capital fund. When good ideas, because let me tell you something, out of 10 good ideas that can be commercialized, 9 of them are going to fail. I mean, that's just the way that it is. And then you come back, and then eventually some of it. But we have to learn to take risk, and we have to learn to accept failure in order to find success. And so we've got to invest in ourselves. And so we're trying to do that. In fact, I'm looking at partners. I'm talking to Ohio University. I'm talking to the venture capital funds, venture capitalists, a variety of other people. Let's get money together, and let's get it in Ohio, and let's invest in these things, and then let's turn them into immediate opportunities for us to create a job. And the reason, I don't want to think of ourselves as being an economic engine. We are, but I want to think about ourselves back to the point I'm making. I want to keep Ohioans here. I want to keep jobs here. I want to keep our best and brightest here. I want to create a world-class environment for people to live and work in this state, and that's the way we're going to have to do that. Questions? Well, I mean, that's what we have to do. I mean, we have to. I mean, you've described it better than I have. Then we have to find fellow travelers. And remember what I said earlier. I said two things. One is the fact that as we're producing the ideas, or as we're doing a variety of other things, then we have to have partners, and you're the partner. But you need to feel that there's someone out there who's got something for you to be able to grasp hold of, then be able to do something, and then put your cat out in the morning. I think that those are things. And so therefore, that's what we're hunting for. One of the things I'll say to you, I don't want anyone to leave today, and Jack Fisher, I want to make this point to you, and that is the fact that I hope when some people really come up with some things here today, or some opportunities or some issues, let's make certain that if it is part of what we should be doing, that we get people immediately connected here. Because that notion of you can create capital, you can create ideas, you got to have the hard work in between. And that's where we're going to have to look to you to help us, and that's where we're going to have to make it possible for you to help us. And that kind of environment is the thing we're trying to create. One last question, and I'm going to get out of here. Oh, come on.
How do we take the great ideas and technology of agriculture and food distribution and deal with what people think are great ideas on animal care and feeding and all of the things that would be counterintuitive to what we have. We have great ideas over here, but we've got a lot of things and hurdles and blocks to get that could keep this great idea, this great technology, from really coming to fruition.
I mean, part of that is politics, and part of that is everything else.
Yes,
I mean, we can talk about this. I don't want to embarrass Jack, but I think that I think that through his leadership, we averted a near disaster in terms of the food production industry and the animal production industry. Because if we'd have gone to the ballot, if we'd gone to another kind of thing, all they do is have to show all those kind of ugly pictures, and we all know they're one-offs. But nonetheless, if he had not had the strength of character to get us out of that dilemma, we would be in a much different shape in Ohio. And so therefore, the answer is the fact that we need to have strong leadership in this regard to be able to make those kind of. One of the problems we face is this, and I face it all the time. And I tell everyone, you got to have nerves like sewer pipes, because if you make a good decision, and you know it's a good decision, everyone's going to criticize you for it because they don't have any of the information you have. And they'd make the same decision you would make if they had the same information. But we live in this kind of we live in this world of instant gratification. Your telephone goes off, your email, your iPad, a variety of other things, and so everyone is giving you what their viewpoint is. And so therefore we're running our businesses based upon immediate response rather than on long-term value added and long-term what makes the most sense. And so I think that that's what we need to do. We need to get some people kind of throw their arms around each other and say we're all going to jump off the cliff together and hang in there. And that's going to be very important. In collaboration and in partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to be with you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.